Many of you may know Simegnish Yekoye as the regular presenter of our Women to Watch segment. Simegnish joined Voice of America in 2021 as a broadcaster in the Amharic Service on a show called Gabina, an infotainment youth radio show that broadcasts to Ethiopia and Eritrea. Prior to joining VOA, Simegnish worked as a journalist, media consultant, and translator. She also served as the director of the Ethiopian Environment Journalist Association. An outspoken advocacy of freedom of expression, she has worked with international media to highlight political as well as human rights stories that do not garner much coverage. Simegnish reflects on some of her work over the past year as a new member of the Our Voice team. Simegnish, Happy New Year. It's so good to see you. How are you?
Happy New Year, so good to be here.
Now, Simegnish, what are some of the stories that stood out for you in 2021 and some of the stories maybe you covered?
As you guess, the conflict in Ethiopia it took so much of our attention in our coverage in 2021. Really, no one anticipated that the conflict is going to disrupt life for such a long time, but it's a very complex war that affected the whole country. So we have been covering the impact on economy, history, the culture, and the society as a whole. Other than that, COVID and its impact has been much in our coverage, but what stood out for me mostly is, the creativities it brought, especially in front of the technologies. I interviewed and brought a lot of young men and women who created and innovated technologies that make social distance learning easier to go through. One thing to mention also is in 2021, the inauguration of the first Black woman as a vice president of United States was inspiring. And I say that because, a woman of color rising to such power is uplifting for so many girls, not only in the United States, but also around the world.
Now, as you mentioned, of course, war and civil unrest are very unfortunate, and when they happen, a lot of lives are disturbed. Let's take a quick look at a recap of what it was like at the end of the year, just a few days ago in 2021, and then we'll go on.
Political tensions in Ethiopia boiled over in November 2020 between the government of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF. Tigray forces attacked a federal military base in their northern stronghold and tried to steal the army's weapons, saying they feared an offensive. Prime Minister Abiy struck back, launching what he said would be a quick military offensive against the rebels. But 13 months later, the fighting continues. The rebels have threatened to march on the capital, Addis Ababa, and a de facto government blockade has left more than 5 million people in Tigray in dire need of humanitarian assistance. The conflict has spread to the neighboring Amhara and Afar regions, leaving an additional 4.2 million people in need of aid.
What became clear quickly in the course of the conflict is that there's unlikely to be any definitive military solution. And this has been the case throughout the course of 2021, and I don't see that changing in the future.
The parties have ignored international calls to stop fighting and talk.
Our concern is for a ceasefire that absolutely must happen. Humanitarian aid needs to reach all those that have suffered from this conflict, and we absolutely need to resolve these problems through political discussions and through dialogue.
Now, Simegnish, how did these events in Ethiopia, the country you're from, are affecting women and children especially?
Unfortunately, women have always been a victim of war, and also children too. And this is the case also in the conflict in northern Ethiopia that has been going on for over a year now. Women are subjected to arbitrary killings. They lost their sons, brothers, husbands in this war. And women are also mainly victims as they continue to be subjected to rape, which is used as a weapon of war by all sides involved in the conflict. And the horrific stories that have been coming out, and the stories of the continued struggles that come out every day is still on top of my mind, and it's really, really sad. Also, displacement is another thing that women are suffering from in this war. Women are forced to flee their home, their properties, everything they worked hard for, and they flee, to protect their unborn child, their infants, and they continue to live in vulnerable situations in shelters around the country. And what makes it more sad is, in this war, health and education facilities are targeted and destroyed in this war, and so that makes it difficult for these women to even have access to medical care, and their children also continue to lag behind in their education because they don't have access to school.
Now, looking at the continent as a whole, what are some of the stories should we be focusing on in 2022 in your view?
I would say, given what we have been covering the past year, conflict resolution and, solution for lasting peace should be given a priority in our coverage. Peace and security are essential for every society, for every human kind. So we need to, our stories need to focus on bringing out stories that advocate balanced, peace for every society. In addition to that, the COVID-19 vaccine inequality is another issue that needs to be given attention. Low vaccine distribution in Africa, while a lot of vaccine is being destroyed in the West for lack of use, is really a shame. So we need our stories need to call out vaccine hoarding as we go forward in this new year.
Mm-hmm. Now, we're talking about the continent, but also in the diaspora. You are a mother of children in the diaspora, full-time working mom. Do you have any advice for women on the continent, or especially in the diaspora, for 2022?
For diaspora, especially mothers, women, but also mothers, I say, please continue to nurture your connections, your friendships, your social fabric. I say this because we in the diaspora, especially mothers, tend to feel alone, tired, stressed, and we really need each other to support. We need each other to encourage and, even share our imperfections and say, it's okay not to be okay. So I say to diaspora mothers, you could be raising your child, you could be building your career, or you could be just, supporting your family in any means. And but you are doing an amazing job, and you are not alone. We are here to share your stories.